Hello guys. Meet again with Babatoran. At the beginning we will be shown a large family on vacation in a villa. After finishing lunch the mother invited her first child to chat, namely Isabel. His mother ordered to invite his new friend named Felix to have dinner together at the villa, but because Isabel had just met the day before yesterday, she refused. And this is Isabel's sister, Victor, who was weak because he couldn't take a nap. He finally went to Isabel's room with the intention of getting him to play. But when I just peeked a little, apparently his brother is busy solo career by using his 2 fingers. He could only stare and undo his intention to play with his brother. The day has come. Victor and Isabel decide to go to the beach. They will relax sunbathing on the beach. But it turns out that there is Felix who is with a friend named Milan. Then Felix said that tonight they were going to a party and Felix invited Isabel to come with them. The story at night saw Isabel who was venting accompanied by her favorite brother Victor, which they often do because Isabel often asks for her sister's opinion. Then Victor came downstairs to distract his parents. After that Isabel went out through the back door of the villa. Isabel finally met Felix. Apparently they didn't go to the party that Felix had previously talked about. Instead, they stopped by an ice cream shop and walked to the beach, which was a bit dimly lit. Short story Felix also took out his tongue martial arts stance so that Isabel was captivated by him. After they felt safe they exchanged saliva with each other and began to get carried away by the very charming beach atmosphere. Finally he was tempted to do steady for the first time. After that Felix took Isabel to go back to his villa. When he got to Isabel's room he told Victor. Tonight he and Felix finally did the good thing. Victor, who was stupid, asked Isabel to tell him how it felt. But because she was tired, Isabel didn't want to tell her now, and before Victor left his room, he also gave a code to Victor not to tell anyone and Victor said yes. When night fell, the Isabel family had a small party for Isabel's 17th birthday, but after blowing out the candles on the cake Isabel actually changed instantly and seemed to have a very big problem, and it seemed like she was thinking about what happened last night. To the next morning when Isabel's big family was Bartram on the beach, suddenly Felix came to them one by one, Isabel's family. Then immediately sat next to Isabel. But not long after, Isabel was engrossed in playing water with her family and left Felix to chat with Victor. A few moments later, he looks like he just got out of the hotel elevator and went straight into a room. Inside was an old man. The grandfather immediately apologized to Isabel for lying about his age. Apparently Isabel sold hers on a site by disguised her name as Lee. Well, the reason for doing all of this is not because he can't afford it, but because of addiction. Then Isabel said that she didn't mind the man's lies. It didn't take long for them to act with great enthusiasm. After that Isabel immediately rushed off and took some money from the man. The next day while on campus, he got another job offer, this time with a dowry of 300 euros, and will be carried out in a hotel in the afternoon. Isabel came out of a restaurant with the appearance she usually wears when meeting her clients. Then he walked to the hotel that had been agreed upon and he finally met his service users in the lobby of the hotel. However, this muscular and manly man has a slightly different fantasy, where Isabel is only asked to pursue a solo career while she also has a solo career. After it ended it turned out that the muscular man paid Isabel not according to his promise. Maybe the reason is because in fact he didn't really use Isabel's services but only saw it. While on the train and about to go home suddenly his cell phone rang. Seen people who are interested in using his services for a fee of 500 euro. Without thinking Isabel immediately agreed to the offer. Long story short, in a parking lot he met his client, but because she didn't want to be fooled a second time Isabel asked the man to pay for it to be opened first. The man agreed, but Isabel had to first wet her cannon, and after that happened again steadily on the back of the car. Then one day my mother took Isabel to watch an opera show. In the theater Isabel accidentally saw one of her clients who often repeated orders to her, and suddenly his cell phone vibrated. Apparently the white-haired grandfather who turned out to be named Yosh wanted to use his services. At that time Isabel finally left her parents and immediately rushed to a hotel. And of course Isabel was trained all out by the grandfather. Finally he realized that his savings are now very booming. Until one day when he was using Isabel's services suddenly Yosh experienced shortness of breath and had a heart attack. Yosh had not had time to fight back, apparently fate said otherwise. Isabel also left in a very hasty and left Yosh who was lying stiff. But Isabel forgot to take the money she paid. She immediately took it and left full of anxiety. Long story short, winter has arrived. 2 Intel people who asked Isabel's parents about Lee or Isabel to her. The intel then explained about the black world that had been lived by his son. His mother had denied it at first because his son was still very young, until finally they went to Isabel's room and did a search there. They found quite a lot of evidence that could put Isabel into custody, one of which was money, clothes and also CCTV footage. Then in the evening Isabel returned to her house. Her mother immediately asked Victor to go into her room, and finally Isabel and mother got into a pretty big argument. Mother also advised Isabel not to go back to doing that despicable job. Then when Isabel was having dinner together, Mom told me to take Isabel to a psychologist. For fear of having psychological problems, Isabel did not want to bother and obeyed her mother's words. The next day Isabel and her mother went to the house of the psychologist. They also discussed and obeyed not to be carried away by the atmosphere which in the future would bring misfortune to him, and finally they also made a meeting again to process gradually for the healing of his son's soul. Long story short, when Isabel had just come home after completing the task, Isabel's illness began to reoccur, where he began to dare seduce his stepfather. How lucky. Mother also came to see him and immediately took Isabel to her room. Even the mother tries to understand the condition of her child, who is still quite difficult to communicate with, because he is also undergoing a recovery process regarding his psychology. In short, a week has passed, now Isabel is back to see her psychologist. He also told me like something was missing from his life when he was no longer doing that steady job. His mind often feels empty and sometimes can't control it, like on the night when he tried to seduce his stepfather. That psychology also continues to provide positive input to Isabel and never touch that dark world again. The days that have passed feel empty and start to get confused because they don't have anything to do. Finally plucked up the courage to go back to using the SIM card which gave him so much pleasure. When the SIM card is used instantly a lot of messages enter there. He also replied to one of them, and not long after he came to the hotel he used to go to when he was being called by Yosh. When in the hotel lobby an old woman approached her, it turned out to be the wife of the late Yosh. The grandmother had also booked the same room when her husband was with Isabel. Isabel told the incident that was experienced by Jose. Then after a brief and clear story they lay down, until finally Isabel fell asleep very soundly. Then when I woke up and found no one there, Isabel just smiled, knowing that, which indicates his psychological health has begun to improve. Then the movie ends.